All right, could I have you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Mikayla Williams. I'm a current student here at DACC.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to start off with a simple question. Who inspires you?
My mother. Yes. Yep.
Okay, moving on. What positive influences have you experienced in our community and or at DACC?
So there's been many positive influences in our community as well as at DACC. I would just want to say the small businesses that are starting up, the Black businesses specifically. There's a small studio that's called Finally Raw Studio next to Penn Station. They're a dance studio, but they have also been featuring small businesses inside their small business, and I think that's a great deal, There's been some photography that's been starting up, and I think that's really cool because it's been a bunch of small businesses, but Black businesses helping each other, like David's Production or Stephanie Butler. I can't really think of hers right now, but they're all been helping each other. And I just think that's neat, that the community is trying to help one another. So that's cool to me.
What is the hardest part for you personally about discussing issues about race in America?
I believe the hardest part about discussing issues is that people don't really understand, or no one really ever sees eye to eye. No one really ever gets your viewpoint. It usually just causes more conflict, and that's the issue at hand, is so much conflict,
Yes. Okay, moving on. Do you feel that the state of racial inequality is improving in our society?
Not at all, no.
That is definitely sad to hear.
Unfortunately,
I
yeah.
agree 100%. Do you feel like you have been negatively targeted because of your race?
In certain aspects, yes. Unfortunately, being an African American, we automatically get a negative viewpoint. When we walk into stores, we get that uncomfortable look, that tension, Sometimes we're even followed around a store, Unfortunately, driving, say you're driving, unfortunately, you can do the smallest thing and you're getting pulled out of your car for not making a complete stop. Instead of just getting the simple ticket, you're now getting pulled out of your car for being an African American, And of course, they take it a step further and saying, well, it's probable cause for this or probable cause for that. But I've been in a car where the same thing has happened with a different race and they haven't gotten pulled out of their car.
That's messed up. Okay. Why is Black History Month important?
I've grown up with Black History Month being important. All I can remember is just so important to the African American race, because that's the month where we actually get to learn about ourselves, where we actually matter, where people actually take time to recognize African Americans, and not for dribbling a basketball or not for rapping a song, but actually for the inventions we've made, the blood, sweat, and tears we've put into this country. We actually learn about ourselves.
That's really good. Okay. You don't have to answer this one if you don't have one. I don't have one, so.
That's fine.
Okay. Do you have a motto that you live by and want to share?
Yes. It comes from my grandmother, and my mom has to remind me this all the time. Don't sweat the small stuff, because eventually it's all small stuff.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yep.
All right. How has the pandemic affected you and your family? Do you feel that minorities are struggling more in these times?
Yes. So I will first answer how it affected me and my family. So unfortunately, my mother is a person who is high risk to COVID, and so is my nephew. So personally, I have to watch what I'm doing, because I don't necessarily live with people, but my everyday activity is with people who are at risk, are high risk, So COVID has just really changed my viewpoints on things. I take this serious, mask up everywhere. My mom takes it way more serious than me, and I kind of, make fun of her for it, but I get it, Unfortunately, we've had family members pass away from COVID. So, and I mean, they were extremely, I get everyone is saying coronavirus deaths are, not exactly coronavirus deaths, but I've had a healthy family member pass away after contracting the virus, and what else is there to say to it, So that, yeah, we've just had to be really, really careful. It's affected my family in a big way. Unfortunately, I feel like the African American population is affected by this just because of the work fields. A lot of people aren't getting laid off. A lot of people aren't getting approved for unemployment. A lot of people are having a hard time. The ones that aren't getting laid off are having a hard time with childcare, with school, because school has now been cut in half to 4 hours instead of 8 hours, but their job hasn't been cut in half to 4 hours, so I get it. And I mean, not just the African Americans, that's everyone in general, but I do understand that, African Americans do tend to get it a little bit harder just because they don't have the resources or finances.
Okay. That was a really good answer.
Thank you. Sorry if it was long.
No. As you look back on all the events of 2020, what has been the most impactful on you?
2020, the most impactful. So I would really say the start of COVID, and only because at the very start of COVID, I got the chance to get a temporary job of actually being a cleaner for a factory, and that made me feel important. People came up to you and just was like, thank you. That at the beginning, we're almost 2 years into coronavirus now, but at the very beginning, people were taking it serious. And when they seen you disinfecting or wiping off a table, they were like, thank you. They weren't like, okay, you're just doing too much now. You're taking it overboard. They were really appreciative. And I was working at a factory where I was literally just disinfecting their lunchroom and their bathroom, and people appreciated it, So that was impactful to me just because people really, people can be nice sometimes. People can be genuine and careful. Not everyone is just like, oh, it's not that serious. You don't have to disinfect. Oh, you don't need hand sanitizer. People are actually genuine about the virus.
Yeah, that's so true. Okay, we're almost done here.
No, you're fine.
What do you feel is the key to battling racism in the United States? And that's a really tricky question.
It is. Do you mind if I take a minute to think on that? Okay. What is the key to battling racism in the United States? Coherency, hearing each other out, understanding, and not, when I say understanding, not understanding so that you can respond, but listening and understanding. Not just listening so that you can hurry up and rebuttal or get your thoughts across, but actually being genuine. Being genuine, I feel like, is really the key to racism in the United States, because I feel like a lot of people are doing things for show and just because, money or reality, but what about the things that aren't actually being recorded? If there's more people like that, that's not focused on, let me do this for the camera, let me record myself while I'm doing this, just actually doing the action and actually thinking about it, the genuality would be big, be amazing.
Do you feel supported as a Black student here at DACC?
You know what, more recently, yes. So, and I want to kind of say this to all the students here at DACC, you have to reach out. It's not just on the faculty. The faculty isn't going to know that you're struggling, or the faculty isn't going to know that you need help. There are so many resources that I literally just found out within the last 2 weeks that African Americans can use, foreign exchange students can use, everyone. You literally just have to reach out and get a hold of these resources. There are people, and I'm one of those people who do not like to ask questions or ask for help because I feel like it's a bother. But that is what our staff are here for. That is what Miss Sandy upstairs in Lincoln Hall is here for. That is what Eunice and Financial Aid is here for. Everyone is here to help. And I literally just found that out within the last 2 weeks. That's probably why I'm a part of this.
Very true. Yeah, very true. Everyone is here to help.
Yes, yep.
Okay. What lessons on diversity do you feel we still have to learn here at DACC? And that's kind of a loaded question.
And I really feel like it's kind of hard due to COVID right now, because I really felt like DACC was doing an excellent thing with that whole, I don't know what it was called in the courtyard they were doing, but it was many different activities. They were just, I don't know what it was called, but I feel like DACC should do that more, not just the one time a year, but all the time. Maybe during Hispanic Heritage Month, do something in the courtyard, Hispanic games and Hispanic food, or maybe during Black History Month, like get some African Americans to make egg rolls and cheesy beef, and do the shuffle slide, because, like that's what African Americans like to do, so instead of just that one time focusing on just everything that we have on in the school, because I feel like it's like counselors are usually out there and like different schools are out there and different club events. I think that's what it's for. I think they should do more focusing on the different ethnics that we have in this school. That'll bring our diversity together big time. That'll open the eyes to the different ethnics that we have here.
Okay. What was one thing that made you feel you could be successful in college?
My counselor. Don Nasher is great. When I tell you my counselor makes me feel successful, because she doesn't just get you in and get you out. She literally asks about your goals. Where do you see yourself in the future? What's your plans for the next 3 years? And even when you're unsure of the class or you don't think you're gonna pass and you're like, you know what, I wanna drop this class. 2 days in, you're like, I wanna drop this class. And she'll be like, are you sure? Well, what's going on? She's not just gonna let you drop it right away. She's gonna talk to you about it. She's gonna ask you why you're not feeling successful in this course, And then if it's something she can't handle, I've been in Dawn's office plenty of times where she's made calls to other people. Like, hey, I have a student in here and this is the issue. She'll give you the resources that you need to be successful in college, not just getting you your schedule. There could be a financial aid issue and the financial aid really isn't helping, or you don't know who to talk to in financial aid, if it's financial aid or the cashier. She helps you figure that out. Like, she's not just making your schedule. She's here to make college a little bit easier.
That's good to hear. Last question. What are your goals for the future? And where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I love this question. So my goal for the future, I would like to be a psychologist, but it's a little bit more than that. So I want to open my own youth recreational center, but it's not just going to be a physical safe place. It's going to be a mental safe place as well. So yeah, we're going to have the typical basketball court and, computer lab, but there's also going to be counselors within that facility so that, students that are maybe acting out in school or ditching school and doing bad things in the community, yeah, you're going to want to come here to play basketball, but you need to talk to someone first. We need to figure out the root of these problems. So within the next 10 years, I see myself graduating and maybe moving on to open my own facility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in. Can I have you introduce yourself?
My name is Marlo Maher, and I'm 62 and hoping to graduate this May. I kind of want to major in African American Studies, and I've been going since August of 2019, and I started in 1976.
Nice. Okay. What positive influences have you experienced in our community and or at DACC?
Here at DACC, I was amazed at the teachers, the TRIO department, financial aid, bookstore. Everyone is very helpful throughout the whole semester. It's not just the beginning of the semester. It's not just even when you have a problem. Everyone wants to speak and say hi, and that goes a long way with me in bringing me back to school.
Nice. Okay. What is the hardest part for you personally about discussing issues about race in America?
Trying not to get mad. I try my best to have an actual dialogue, to have a conversation, and not all of a sudden get mad and think, well, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to say? Try to keep calm and turn it into a dialogue.
Do you feel that the state of racial inequality is improving in our society?
In our society, there are pockets where you have individuals who have either experienced it from a personal experience, professional experience, or those who are trying to reach out In Danville alone, I remember going to school. When I went to school and left here in '76 to go to Chicago to go to school, when I came back, I was very aware of how prejudiced and how racial Danville is. Today, if you find yourself at Walmart or wherever, you might not run into all that, and I think it's more so because there are blended families.
All right. Do you feel like you have been negatively targeted because of your race?
The first thing that comes to mind is Walmart. I've had situations out at Walmart where people didn't want to observe the 6 feet, where people were so used to running up behind somebody, and I've taken it personal, and I don't know if it was racial.
Okay. Why is Black History Month important to you?
See, I celebrate Black history all year round. I feel that what I try and do, even for my family at times, not so much since I've been going to school, I try and give my kids and grandkids a picture of our ancestors, give them knowledge about my mother, my grandmother, my grandparents, and about what they did. I feel that the schools DACC does a great job of reminding everyone about not just Martin Luther King and not just the civil rights movement. It is important, even if it just happens for 28 days, to remind, even if it's just one person, that we as a people are about 1 million different contributions to this country.
That's awesome. Okay, 1 second. Make sure we're still good. Okay, and you can answer this or not. I personally don't have one, but do you have a motto that you live by and want to share?
A motto. Well, I always keep my late mother's phrase within my heart. How did it go? Something to the fact of, well, I can't come up with it. For the most part, I try to stress to my kids and to my grandkids that how you want to be treated, keep that at the tip of your tongue, and how you treat others. Think of it first about if the shoe were on the other foot, how would it go down? So I always try to keep that in my heart.
That's good. Okay, moving on. How has the pandemic affected you and your family? And do you feel that minorities are struggling more in these times?
I love the pandemic, especially with school. I've just turned into this. I have this cave at home, and I study constantly, and I don't like having people that close to me. So it's been great for me in that people have been able to stay at a distance. I've raised in a family where my parents were my mother was a nurse. And so it didn't take that much for me to say, hey, there's a problem here. And so I have older brothers and sisters and family who have respected it. Minorities who have had to be nurses, who have worked in lower paying jobs, whether they be in some type of service industry and where you've got more than 2 people living at home, have had a very difficult time. And I've got nieces who are having a rough time with school.
Okay. As you look back on all the events of 2020, what has been the most impactful on you?
Well, actually, the worst one was the death of Kobe Bryant. That one right there set the tone for what I had been doing all along, was just value every minute. After that, I lost a niece to leukemia, and I've had to really take a step back and evaluate what do I want to do and how important it is to get it done and not hesitate.
This is a very tricky question, but what do you feel is the key to battling racism in the United States?
One of the biggest things that I had done was I took an African American class with Dr. Lucas. It first starts with either education in the schools or in the home, and it starts with honesty. You have to be able to sit down and say, this is exactly what happened. This is exactly how we treated the people and why we treated them and where we're going to go from here. So if you're just going to start from today, not that much is going to get done. You've got to start from 1619.
That's really good. Do you feel supported as a Black student here at DACC?
Definitely. Definitely. If not, I'm going to make sure that I'm supported.
What lessons on diversity do you feel we still have to learn here at DACC?
At DACC, it would have to start with the fact that even if African Americans succeed, even if Black people are doing something better than you, that we will still include everyone. We're not going to take that and tell everybody else, get out of my face. As a whole, as a people, we are a very inclusive people. So for DACC, whether they were to have a Black president, whether even if 5-6 of the staff were Black, it would not mean that white people were going to be mistreated. DACC would still excel.
Nice. Well answered. Okay, only a few more here. What was one thing that made you feel you could be successful in college?
I had other people tell me that, and I had a friend of mine about the same age as I who graduated. And the two areas that have been totally successful for me is, number one, because I have a disability, the Illinois Department of Rehabilitation and TRIO. If I'd had those 45 years ago, I may have excelled. And also there is a department for those who are having disability and who have issues with studying or whatever, that make it so that if you're ever having a problem, I can't have to think of her name, Kathy, I want to say Rudolph, I forget. Lisa Rudolph. There are people here, if you're willing to help yourself, there are people that are willing to help you as long as you go to them. Doesn't matter if you get D's, doesn't matter if you're struggling. These departments will give you whatever assistance, tutoring, mass tutoring, the writing center. There's so many departments here that can help any level of student. And that's when I knew at any time, if I have a problem, I know who to go to help me.
Nice. Okay. That is a repeat question. Okay, last question. What are your goals for the future, and where do you see yourself in 10 years?
10 years, I'd be 72. Oh, I'd love to have a doctorate by then. I would love to, and I don't know if it's going to be, I've created this major forensics in African American history. Could end up being music, could end up being, the sky's the limit. But I do, because my father had a master's degree, my late sister had a master's degree, my mother was able to get a nursing license, and she had 9 kids. It's just me. I can do this. I can get an associate from DACC, go from there and get a bachelor's, get a PhD, and at the same time find, whether it's a research development or whatever area I want to work in, and just zoom in,
Nice.
concentrate, take it.
Well done. Okay, so okay, first I'm going to ask you, what motivates you
What motivates me, in what particular manner? As
here at DACC?
here at DACC, watching students succeed. anything I could do to help them succeed, that's what keeps me going.
Okay. Do you feel like you have been negatively targeted because of your race?
As far as on campus or just in general?
Yeah.
I can say there have been instances where I've experienced that, on campus and off, to be honest. Yes.
All right. How has the pandemic affected you and your family? And do you feel like minorities are struggling more in these times?
For my family, we got to spend a lot of time together, so it's actually been good for the family, because my husband and I, it's just us at home. But when the pandemic hit, my daughter came home to stay with us because she didn't want to be in her house by herself for 3 months. So that was kind of challenging, with two people working at two different community colleges at the same table trying to take care of business. But once she went home, my husband and I, we just got to spend a lot of time together. So it was good for us. As far as minorities in general, and I don't like to use the word minorities, but minoritized individuals, yes, it has been hard, because we know there's a great divide with, digital divide between either economic classes or the races. And so I think it has been more challenging for them, but I'm very happy that DACC has tried to answer that, face that challenge and try to answer that for the students that are on our campus, to make sure that all of our students had what they need, especially during the pandemic time.
Okay, moving on to the next question. Why is Black History Month important?
I think it's important because we need to know about all of our history. And growing up I grew up in Pennsylvania, and when I was in, my history classes, we didn't get a lot of the history. And when I became the student diversity advocate at first on DACC's campus, I did a lot of history searching, and I found a lot of hidden history, especially African American hidden history. And it's important that we all know about our true history for the Americas, for the world at large, so that we can understand how we all fit into this world. And I think if we had the understanding of contributions of each group, the things that they've done to support, to grow our country, our world, I think we'd have a deeper appreciation for other people.
I really like that. That was a good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's how I truly feel.
What is your hopes for our students?
I have a lot of hopes.
Let me rephrase that.
Okay.
I'm going to add on to that. What is your hopes for our African American students here at DACC? What do you want them to take away?
I want them to have an enriched education. I want them to walk away with a degree, a certificate, or upgraded skills. I want them to have an appreciation of everybody that's on campus, anyone that's in their classroom, their instructors, the service people, anybody that they see on campus. I want them to have an appreciation and to want to have an appreciation for those, and to acknowledge them as, you're someone who has contributed to my education.
Great. Okay, moving on. Do you feel supported as a Black or African American staff here at DACC?
I feel like I'm very supported. I've had a lot of wonderful opportunities at DACC. I've had the trust of my supervisor and top level, executive level administration. Anytime I have a quote unquote harebrained idea, they are always willing to listen, and I've been pretty blessed to be able to actually at least pilot them.
Okay. Moving on. Do you think that people view you differently because of the color of your skin?
Yes. I think a lot of people think that I have certain ideologies, certain beliefs, just because I'm an African American female. But people would be surprised to know that if they took the time to get to know me, that most of the times I'm pretty conservative in my thought processes, and but also open and liberal. I'm kind of a all across the board kind of person, and I hate to be put in a box. And I think people oftentimes do that with no matter who they see the person in front of them and they put them in a box automatically. I would like for people to see me as, you know, this beautifully wonderful individual who has a lot, you know, of different tastes, a lot of different likes and things like that.
What lessons on diversity do you feel we still have to learn here at DACC?
That's loaded. We have to, I would say, be open to learning about everybody and everything. You may not like it, but at least be open to learning about it. I always say, you can't say you disagree with something if you don't know anything about it. Don't go on assumptions. And I think oftentimes, you know, we do that, and that's human nature. But I think that's something that as a community at DACC, and we do a lot of good things, but as a community, I think we could just continue to do more of that.
Okay.
Well, I haven't heard any of them, so they're all good to me.
As you look back on all the events of 2020, what has been the most impactful and what has been driving you to keep going?
What has been most impactful? I could say that through all the challenges that we've seen, and we've seen, you know, shelter in place, we've seen, you know, killings, we've seen murders, we've seen protests, we've seen quote unquote insurrections. Through all of that, people still believe that we can be a good nation, that we can be who we claim we are. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, we're just about done. Okay. I feel like these are repetitive. Okay. What is the hardest part for you personally about discussing issues about race in America?
I want to take a moment to think about that. What is the hardest part about discussing race in America?
Yes.
I think it would go back to assumptions that we have about people, but also I would say the non-acknowledged hurt that some people, some groups have experienced, and acknowledging that, I think, from a majority or majoritized group, I think that would help. And people are afraid. People don't want to know, you know, they're afraid to say the wrong thing. They're afraid to do the wrong thing. But if we were open and honest with each other and just had a conversation, like you and I, we're just sitting here having a conversation. If we do more of that, I think it would make race relation conversations so much more easier. And we have to be courageous. We have to be able to say how we really feel, and on the other side, be willing to accept how that other person feels.
Could I have you introduce yourself and your role here at DACC?
I'm Stephane Potts, Director of Advisement and Counseling and Transfer Articulation Coordinator.
Okay. Moving on to the first question. What positive influences have you experienced in our community and or at DACC?
That's a good question. At DACC, I've had a few, I've been in a few positions in a few different departments. In each department, I've had several different amazing supervisors, and each had their own style, and each poured into me wisdom, knowledge, whether it be personal or professional. In the community, although my circle is small, my father is a local minister with the church here right up the street on Main. And his circle is quite larger than mine. And growing up, I was just surrounded by positive people. You know, they may not have had a title or a position, but they believed in pouring positivity in me. So, you know, whether it was an encouraging word or a hug, a smile, something that's helped them along the way. I've had, you know, several people on both ends help.
Nice. So what church is it?
It's Saint Synagogue, Church of God in Christ.
Is it on the, out there on the next to?
It's right across from Mead Park.
Okay, got
Brick
it.
Church,
Yeah.
yes.
Exactly what you're talking about. Okay. Do you feel that the state of racial inequality is improving in our society?
No. There's been a lot that's transpired over the past few years, with killings, with just mindsets that I don't believe have helped at all. And I think we're probably in worse shape than we've been in a long time.
What is the hardest part for you personally about discussing issues about race in America?
There have been times when listening to my father, who'll be 84 this year, and some of his experiences and how things were, as how things that he experienced, were coming along. And that's hard to hear, because of course I love my father very much. So some of those stories are hard to hear. And then, when I think of just things that transpired recently in the world with, there seems to be so much hate. It just makes it very difficult.
That's very true. Do you feel that you have been negatively targeted because of your race?
Definitely, yes.
Moving on. Why is Black History Month important to you?
I think I was just telling my team last week that it's important because it helps me understand where I've come from. There's a lot of history that wasn't taught in the educational system. There's a lot that I didn't learn. And it seems like every year I learn bits and pieces of it that help. It's also important for me as a Black woman, interacting with others, that they understand where I've come from historically, and how my ancestors have contributed to a lot of the things that we have and use today.
Moving on. I personally don't have one of these, but you may have one. Do you have a motto that you live by and want to share?
I do have one, and since I was, I don't know how old, my mother always told me, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. And so whenever I think of something, or I think of challenges or a new adventure, I always think of that. If I put my mind to it, I can do it. And usually it pans out. So that's been my motto.
That's good.
Thanks, Mom.
Okay. How has the pandemic affected you and your family, and do you feel that minorities are struggling more in these times?
Okay. The pandemic has affected my family, and I think it's affected each family differently. For my family, my husband's a fireman, so they have a lot of protocols in place, which have changed things drastically on their end. So some of those protocols change things at home for us. As the second part of that question, could you repeat that, please?
Yeah. Do you feel that minorities are struggling more in these times?
I honestly feel that everyone is struggling. I don't think you can tie race and pandemic together, because we are truly all in this, and I think it's affecting everyone. As a minority, we've had our struggles in other areas, you know, as far as educationally, trying to stay in school and complete, trying to find, employment to take care of your families. So I think that struggle was always there, and the pandemic didn't help.
Okay. As you look back on all the events of 2020, what has been the most impactful on you?
The most impactful has been the amount of death. I've lost loved ones. Many people have lost friends, family, loved ones throughout this. So I think that's been the most impactful for me, just trying to, usually when you go through grief, there's stages, and it doesn't happen as often as it's been happening. So just, doing some self-checks, just mentally and emotionally, to make sure I'm good, to make sure, my family and friends are okay. So I think that's been the most impactful.
Okay. It's a very tricky question. What do you feel is the key to battling racism in the United States?
That is a tricky question. I think there should be more conversations, more listening, more understanding. When I think about that question, I think of Martin Luther King, and one of his sayings was, and I may get this backwards, but he said, "Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can." So I think that we need more light and more love, more understanding, more conversations.
That's really good. Okay, moving back, switching gears here. Do you feel supported as an African American employee here at DACC?
I do. As I mentioned previously, I currently have an amazing supervisor. She's very supportive. In previous positions, I've had supportive supervisors, so I do, and we have a supportive president, vice president. I've created my own support system within the system, so it's almost like having a specialty doctor. So with this person I can go to with this problem or issue, and with this person I can go to, I can go to another person for a different problem. So yes, I do.
What lessons on diversity do you feel we still have to learn here at DACC?
I think it is a continuous process. Maybe not one thing. I don't feel that there's one thing that I can pinpoint, but I think that it's continuous. As things change in the world, as issues change, I think it's a continuous lesson to be learned. Like education, there's always more to learn. It's always changing and evolving. So I think, when we think about diversity, it's always evolving. So it's a continuous learning experience.
Very true. What advice would you give African American DACC students?
That's a good question, because I am a product of DACC. And I think that I would tell them that I want to say keep fighting, but it's not a physical fight, but keep going, keep pushing forward, keep trying, keep moving forward, keep progressing, stay positive, stay motivated. Everything that's before you may not be what it is down the line. you can, get over that. If you can get over that mountain to the other side, there's more. There's more to be had. There's more to gain.
Nice.
My name is Dwight Lucas. I'm a faculty member here at DACC in the business department.
Nice. Okay, starting off with the first question.
Yep.
What positive influences have you experienced in our community and or at DACC?
I think there's a lot of positive influences here in our community. Some of the leaders of especially black churches, and they've been a large impact or influence in my life as far as like pastors and things like that.
Nice. Okay. What is the hardest part for you personally about discussing issues about race in America?
I think probably just getting the dialogue started. Can you say that again? Yeah.
Okay. What is the hardest part for you personally about discussing issues about race in America?
Let's see. I don't know if it's hard to start. I think the hardest part is just getting the conversation started and just being aware, being sensitive to how both sides of the race conversation might feel, and just having an open dialogue with both sides. That might be the hardest part to, getting that started.
That seems to be the most common answer, and that's totally true. Okay. Do you feel that the state of racial inequality is improving in our society?
I think it's definitely better than in the past, but I think there's a little ways to go, especially when thinking about in the upper echelon of things like the corporate America, even in like the sports arena, like just things like we just had the Super Bowl, but like I think Jim Brown was talking about how there's a lot of now black athletes in the NFL, but not as many head coaches or general managers in that position. So I think in those areas we have a lot of improvement to make up.
Okay. Do you feel that you've been negatively targeted because of your race?
In some ways, there's some instances I can recall that been targeted, and I wouldn't say targeted, but just more like probably discriminated against. But.
Yeah. Okay. Why is Black History Month important to you?
It's important just because it's a part of who I am, and by who I am, I mean just as an American. I think it's just important to me. I think it should be important to every American because it's just pretty much a part of history, U.S. history in general.
Do you have a motto that you live by and want to share?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't have one either, so yeah totally fine.
Yeah.
We can skip that one.
Okay.
Okay. How has the pandemic affected you and your family, and do you feel that minorities are struggling more in these times?
It's definitely made us more careful when we go out, and as far as the race, I do think there are disparities which were there way before the pandemic, but you kind of see it a little bit more when the pandemic, as far as like healthcare, but yeah.
Okay. As you look back on all the events of 2020, what has been the most... Did I already read you this one?
No.
Okay. As you look back on all the events of 2020, what has been the most impactful on you?
Yeah, I guess other than, I don't know, the pandemic's been pretty impactful. It's made me be able to focus more on like family when staying at home, the stay-at-home order and stuff. So, and just kind of just reevaluate, reexamine my personal life, spiritual life. I think that's been probably the most impactful event.
What do you feel is the key to battling racism in the United States?
I think probably maybe just, well, I think one way is just to fight it is to actually admit or agree that it actually exists. denying that exists doesn't help. So I think first acknowledging that it exists, and then also just action from both sides, never giving up until it goes away, which it might be a while till it goes away, but just being committed to getting rid of it. Yeah.
What advice would you give African American students here at DACC?
I would probably just, the advice that I would give them would be just don't despise small beginnings. DACC's a good place to get started academically and career-wise in some sense. And I would probably just give them advice to, I guess just start out here. Yeah. I don't know if that's a good enough answer, stumbling a bit, but yeah.
Okay. Hey, one more question.
Okay.
What is your hopes for our students here at DACC?
I think my hope is that while they're out here and they're receiving their education and going through their classes, that they actually are inspired and encouraged to become contribute to their community and just become good citizens around this area.
Nice.
All right, can you say your name?
Dalen Davis Williams.
All right, Dalen. So we're just gonna, ask you some questions as we get ready for Black History Month. We're gonna do a little video. So why do you think that Black History Month is important?
It's important because people of my race have been through the struggle for many, many years, and we just need to reflect on that past, and people need to see how things were and how we were treated and how we need to move on from that and do better as a society.
Do you think that race relations have improved in society or even in the community?
Yes, I believe racial issues have been improved by substantially a lot, but there's still some out there, but it's getting better.
Okay, good. So what about your time here at DACC? Have you, felt like you've been accepted, being a Black student here?
Yes, I feel like I've been accepted. I've been living in Danville for 20 years, and here at DACC, it's a wonderful experience being here. I feel like I've been treated as equally as everyone around me, and that's made me feel well appreciated.
Good. So if there were any Black students wanting to come to DACC, say seniors in high school, what advice would you give them to prepare them to come to college?
Just mindset. Everything that you go through in life is all about the mindset that you have. And you can achieve anything you put your mind to. Just have to put your mind and your heart to it, actually.
All right. So, is it hard for you to discuss issues about race, or is there any particular side to it that's harder for you to talk about than others?
It's not really hard for me to talk about it. It's just the life that we lived, and we have to not actually deal with it. But it's terrible that we had to deal with it. But it's something that we should be able to talk about.
Do you feel like you personally have been negatively targeted because of your race?
In the past, that I have felt I've been called names before, but me as a strong-minded person, I took effect to it, but not effect that would put me in harm's way.
Okay. Do you think that maturity, age, or even education have played a part in you being able to?
Yes, most definitely, because the more I strengthen my muscle in my brain, the more the decisions I make, the good decisions I make. So, yes.
Good. So obviously this has been a crazy year. How has the pandemic affected you and your family? And then on top of that, do you think that minorities have struggled more during this pandemic?
Well, with my family, I have some family members that had caught COVID. My grandfather have recently passed January 1st due to COVID, and I have an uncle in the hospital right now due to COVID. It affected me not so much at the beginning of it, but towards the new year, it affected me more than anything. But just with the minorities and people living in society today, with everything going on right now, I feel like it does affect us in a way, but some people really don't show it, but it does affect us in many ways.
Okay. And what about from a school standpoint? Do you think, it is harder maybe for minorities to succeed in school with remote learning and not being on campus?
Yeah, like with some students, people they learn better in class with hands-on things instead of just sitting at a computer visualizing it. And it's kind of a struggle for students, but some students can catch on pretty easy, but some students not. It's just everyone's different.
That is true. So what is your major currently?
Criminal justice.
Criminal justice, all right. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
10 years, I see myself being a part of a law enforcement agency, being an officer and giving back to my community and helping people out each and every day.
Okay. Do you personally think that you have been either negatively or positively stereotyped, like in your life? So if you look at, becoming a police officer, do you think being a black police officer is going to be different than being a white police officer?
Everybody have their perspectives over things. Can't really control that, but me, as wanting to be a black police officer, I want to have people of my race or people of other races to feel comfortable with me, instead of like some black people, when they approached by a white officer, they feel nervous, but being approached by a black officer, I wanted to feel different, to feel calm, and yeah.
And let's see, what is one thing that has made you feel successful in college, or something that has helped you be successful in college?
Just the resources. I always have opportunity to reach out to people to help me, and I really appreciate them for providing me with the help, and just people I surround myself around. I always have my back, I have their back, and it's just a blessing to have people around me like that.
All right, two more hopefully fairly easy questions. Who is someone who's a role model for you, or someone that has positively affected your life?
Mainly role model I have in my life is my mother. She's been there with me throughout all my life, and she will continue to be with me throughout all my life. She showed me the path to so many things, and I'm just so blessed to have her in my life. And another is LeBron James, just the things that he came from and brought himself up to, and the way he give back to his community and others, and how he appreciate people and how he fight for his social justice and everything. And I really respect him for everything he do.
Excellent. And then do you have a motto that you live by?
Not really, but I just wake up each and every day and I pray to God, and I ask him to heal each and everyone around me. Even I tell him I pray for, I tell him, what did I say? I tell him, let the bad be good and let the good be great.
First, can I have you introduce yourself and your title here at DACC?
My name's Rickey Williams. I'm professor of criminal justice.
Nice. Okay, so we're going to start off with the first question. What positive influences have you experienced in our community and or at DACC?
I've had a lot of positive experiences. I came into the DACC community when I was young, so it was kind of interesting. I was probably about 12. When I got introduced to Mary Miller and the people that were here on campus. And so that was a great experience. And she was always, anytime she would see me or something, she'd always say, well, you're going to come out here at DACC, you're going to do this, do that. And there's always yes, of course, even though I might have been thinking about something else at that point. But the community, our community has always been great. I grew up in Westville, but did a lot of things in Danville because my mother and father's friends were from Danville also, and so it was always very supportive. The community, I remember Coach K. He had always tell me, "Hey, when are you going to move to Danville and play baseball for me?" Those kinds of things. So people were always supportive. So
nice. Okay. What is the hardest part for you personally about discussing issues about race in America?
The people are so uncomfortable with it. It's hard to talk about an issue if you don't want to deal with the true facts. And I tell people those facts differ depending on you and I, because it depends on your perspective on how you see it. And so a lot of people see it one way because they've been reared that way, raised that way, their town thinks that way, that kind of stuff, and it becomes kind of part of their persona. Okay, and they don't realize it. I do one thing in class that I do is we break down where people are from, because we have people from Indiana, Chicago, Danville, Westville, Georgetown, all over, and then we break down exactly how they see that town. Okay, not a particular person, but that town, and you'd be surprised what happens.
That's very interesting. Okay, moving on. Why is Black History Month important?
Black History Month is important because as an African American, as a Black American, we have contributed so much to society, and a lot of stuff gets washed away. People haven't really looked at it and seen what, we always get the same people, W.E.B. Du Bois, we get, Martin Luther and, Malcolm, those kind of people. But there were so many more people behind the scenes, my family, for instance, that were behind the scenes that people never got to see.
That's very true. Do you feel that the state of racial inequality is improving in our society?
Has been since we started America. This is what's kind of aggravating and frustrating, because we're acting as if we haven't made progress. We've made progress, okay? And don't get me wrong, but what happened over this last year is not progress. My folks did civil rights marches and stuff. My family was involved in that. It wasn't involved in destruction, and I'll never agree with the destruction of property. I don't care whose it is. But the actual marching and stuff, we have a right to do that. We have a constitutional right to do that. So.
100%. Do you feel that you've been negatively targeted because of your race?
I know I have. Yes. When I was a child, about 11, 12 years old, I was refused service. So I don't talk about who did that and all that, because their family members were friends of mine. Okay. But that was, as my grandmother would say, that was a sign of the times. But those times changed. Okay, matter of fact, that time changed within about 2 or 3 weeks when I went home and told my mom and dad what happened. And then, so I don't know what they did, but I was invited back there to have a meal there. And I was like, no, if you didn't want to give it to me in the first place, I don't need to go now. So.
Totally understand that. Now, this might be a tricky question. I don't personally have one. Do you have a motto that you live by and want to share?
Yeah, I believe you need to treat other people the way you want to be treated. Okay? I can't give you what I don't have. If I don't have love in my heart, I can't share love with you. If I don't like people, then I can't share that with you. So if you don't have it, if you don't possess it, you have to do one of two things. Either you have to change it, or you're going to live with it. And I would rather change it than to live with something that's negative, that's going to continue to penetrate other people's lives in a negative manner.
Nice. Okay. How has the pandemic affected you and your family, and do you feel that minorities are struggling more in these times?
Minorities always struggle more, so don't ever think that's somebody's going to be in the majority, somebody's going to be in the minority. Just how it is. You shouldn't persecute people for being poor, or for being black, or for being, LGBT. That's the thing that I would look at. I'm not looking at, am I persecuted anymore? Or is it this pandemic? I'm tired of hearing about the pandemic, to be honest with you. To me, it's a little more deadlier than the flu, but it's just like the H1N1 or any of the rest of the pandemics. It's just that we've heard about it more than those other things. And I think those things inside of that pandemic, of that, just from socioeconomic problems, people of lower social class would have a more difficult time during this, most of the time, not all the time, because some of them have done well, with jobs and stuff like that. But more than likely they will have a more difficult time.
Okay. As you look back on all the events of 2020, what has been the most impactful on you?
Losing family and friends because of the pandemic. You know, that has been most impactful. I think that 2020 was very difficult too in being more secluded, not being around people as much as I usually am. And so that's also very difficult, not for me to deal with, just the difficult of in my psyche. I like to be outgoing, that kind of thing. So.
Okay, and this is a really tricky question, and feel free to skip it. What do you feel is the key to battling racism in the United States?
Talking to one another. We have to be able to talk about a situation. You know, there are always, throughout my life, I always heard three things we don't talk about, right? Religion, politics, and race. Okay, those are the three main things that we need because they drive the economy. They drive what you and I do. So we have to look at that, you know. And when you're talking about race specifically, we're multicultural. America is a true melting pot. So if you can't look at me and see me as a human being, not as a male or a black male, then we already have a problem. So we need to look at each other, how we see each other. Okay.
Really good answer. Do you feel supported as a black employee here at DACC?
Yes, yeah, I always have. Dr. McConnell, which is my dean, she's always been very supportive. Dr. Jacobs, when she was here as the president, very supportive, and Dr. Natko is very supportive. So everybody that we have that has been in my hierarchy has been very supportive of me, and I think my constituents and my peers. So.
Okay. What advice would you give to African American DACC students?
Same thing I would tell anyone that's a student. Persevere. You have to finish. There's a starting point and there's an ending point. And the ending point is your goal. Okay? Everything in between there is your journey. Okay? Have fun. Be smart. Do it the right way. But remember that there's stages in your life, and it's okay if you have a tough time or you go through a little uneasy time or you have a difficult professor. It's okay. Guess what? That's part of life, because you're going to find somebody out there in your world that's difficult to deal with, and you're going to have to learn how to deal with it. So.
Can you say your name?
Esther Robinson.
Esther Robinson. So we're just going to have a conversation about Black History Month. I'll ask you some questions and just whatever comes to mind.
Okay.
So you are from Nigeria, correct?
Yeah.
So do they have Black History Month in Nigeria?
No, I just found out about it when I came here.
Okay.
I had to learn.
So what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's something that is effective?
I think it's something that needs to be respected, which is being respected. And yeah, so far I've learned that it's a big deal here, and people like looking at the history and the way we believe it back home, it's totally different here. We know what happened, but after getting here, I know what people went through, and I really respect it now. So, yeah.
It's very interesting. So being here in Danville or in Vermilion County, have you experienced any sort of like racism or anything negative or even positive?
Well, I'm a very outspoken person. so I try to tell people, like, if I feel they acting like that, I just make sure they understand what they're doing. So I don't take it personal. Like, I feel like it's something in the system and we're still working to get it out. So I don't really feel offended, but I try to make them know what they're doing at that time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what kind of advice do you think you would give African American students in our county?
I just feel like they should get out of a stereotype. I know it's been there. I know what happened, and I know it's sad, but I feel like it's being used now as something to cover up. Like, we shouldn't use it as an excuse. It's wrong. And if we feel like it's happening, then we should just speak out, because everybody knows it now. So why use it for a cover up?
Great. Is there anything that you think has helped you be successful in college?
Me being accepting, I really didn't seclude myself. I was really interested in learning everything, and yeah, that helped. Like I got to meet new friends and really good ones, so that helped. Like being able to accept everything the way it is and just going for it. Yeah.
Excellent. Sorry, just kind of bouncing around.
You're good.
Do you think that you've had enough guidance here, like being a Black student? Have you had enough guidance at DACC, or do you think that would you give any advice to maybe instructors or any of the staff members?
I think the instructors are great though. Like they don't really discriminate.
Okay.
If they do, they've not really shown me. And if I feel like that, I say it.
Okay.
And I tell them they don't treat me differently, so.
Good. We love to
They
hear
know my
that.
big
We love
mouth.
to hear. So it sounds like, one of the big things you're saying is people need to stick up for themselves, be outspoken.
Yeah.
So those are definitely great bits of advice. Is there anything else that you think personally has made you be as successful as you are?
I was really going for my goal. I didn't want to, it was hard sometimes, studying, not being able to do stuff, but when I really look at where I want to be, that pushed me, looking at my mom back home. She never graduated high school, so I really wanted to do more.
Okay.
So that's really what pushes me to do everything.
Well, good.
Yeah.
So what is your goal? Where do you want to be in, let's say, 10 years?
I don't know. I want to do everything.
Okay.
I don't feel like nursing here is really what I might get what I want here, but I was just telling someone the other day, I feel like I'm addicted to school. So I feel like I'm definitely going to do more. I know I might not go as far as I want to, but I want to get to the level where I feel like I've done everything I needed to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it also sounds like you think education is very important. So do you think having an education and having kind of the strength that you've talked about is what makes people successful?
I feel like education is a big part. Yeah, it is. You have that inner confidence. You know what you're talking about. It's good to be knowledgeable. Yeah, it's really good. So. Yeah, looking back home, we might go to school. We have a lot of Nigerians going to school, but there's no work. It's bad back home. You going to school for years and getting to work and not making that much. But being able to go to school here and make good money afterwards, yeah, that's great. That's great, and I feel like people should realize that and really go to school. Yeah.
And then, so 2020 obviously was a very interesting year. So do you think that the pandemic or I guess, how has it affected you? And do you feel like being a minority, being a person of color, has affected you more negatively?
I think it did. It did affect me because we were going from school, going into school and being able to ask questions in school and going online. So I feel like it affected us as a student and even the teachers because they didn't really know what was going on too. But we had to, personally, I knew I was going to be emailing them more because sometimes I don't even understand what's going on. But I'm glad I never skipped any homework because that would have really made me upset. But it took me a while to balance. It affected my grading some kind of way. I thought I was going to drop out. But yeah, I still kept going, but it really affected a big deal. I feel like we're getting used to it, but we're not. I was just talking to them today about clinicals, we can't keep writing all these letters or all these email essays. They give us essays to do now. I don't feel like it's clinical. So it's we need to do one-on-one talking again. That's really clinicals to me, so. Yeah, it's affected everything.
Yeah. What about back home in Nigeria? Do you think it has affected the economy there and just in general how people
Yeah,
are living?
it affected them, but I don't know. COVID isn't like big deal back home. They're doing fine. They had COVID, but it's not killing much people. Well, from what I've read or what I've seen, like my family, they're all fine. Like nobody has been affected, so. But it's just maybe traveling, having the mindset of there's COVID outside definitely affected everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, very scary.
Yeah, it is.
And I know you also mentioned just from being from Nigeria, just a lot of the knowledge that you have, based off of, historically how blacks have been treated.
Yeah.
Is there any part of that that is like hard for you to discuss?
Well, I feel like the hard part so far, because I've noticed, I'm just going to say my mind, I know black to black also have that thing of like, I didn't go through what they went through. And we're Africans, but we always have that clock ahead. Like, I get into trouble with even blacks, I'm not gonna lie. So I feel like that's the biggest part, knowing we didn't go through what they went through. And that's where the stereotypes come in. Fine, I know what they went through, but this is the new generation. Like, that's history. It should be respected, but let's not use it to, like, judge people anymore.
Right.
We need to get out of that box, and I feel like when they do, it's gonna help.
Yeah. Don't judge people, don't hurt people.
Yeah.
Okay. So just a couple more questions. So who inspires you?
I feel like my mom and my grandma, well, my late grandma, she died. She's late. She died of stroke. And I remember like the last days I went to the room. I thought it was like my younger cousin laying on the bed. She just got back from the United States. So she had the G-tube on and everything. I hopped out of the room. That was when I realized like, I keep blaming myself for that because I feel like I should have seen her, because the next time I heard about her, she was already passed. But I was so scared to go in because she was so tiny and little. So she does inspire me, like I want to do more. I know I wasn't able to really get in and take care of her then. So I really want to take care of people like her and be able to help.
That makes sense. It sounds like you are strong like them and you want to learn how to help.
And not be scared and hop out of the room next time.
Hopefully as a nurse you won't do that. So last question is, do you have a motto or some sort of, something that you live by that you would want to share with us?
I do live by saying my mind. I feel like if I don't, it's going to eat me up. I know sometimes I keep it to myself, but when I do, that's the worst day ever. So I better just say my mind and get going. And just like my motto for this year, life is too short. So I better just do everything I need to do, because looking at how COVID has affected people, like they don't know they were going to die. So how about you just live to the fullest and not think about it? So.
Well, awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
Nothing really. Maybe DACC is great, and I'm gonna miss it
We'll miss you
when
too.
I graduate. Yeah, that's just it.
Well, great. Thank you, Esther. Anything
No
else you
problem.
want to add? No? All right. Good morning. What's your name?
Anaiya Robinson.
All right, Anaiya. So we're going to talk about Black History Month. Just ask you some questions, but we'll start out easy. So you're a DACC currently a DACC student. You're going to get ready to graduate in May, correct?
Yes.
What's your major?
It's general studies.
General studies. All right. Okay. So in your time here at DACC, have you felt supported as a Black student?
Yes. It was a little struggle though, but yes, I did.
Okay. What kind of struggles do you think there were? Or what advice maybe would you give new students or even your instructors?
To find that support that's being given to you. So like with the tutoring center or any other extra sources there is, you should take it for granted and go for it, and don't try to look elsewhere, you know.
And then, do you think that you've learned any sort of lessons on diversity or have a better understanding of what diversity is in your time here?
Yes, I do. I love diversity in colleges because you get to experience with other students, and teachers.
Okay. So if we look at our community or society in general, do you feel that the state of racial inequality is improving in our society?
In our society, honestly, I think more people spoken up and are trying to do better, but honestly, I feel like it can be better. So I feel like if we keep doing what we're doing, then hopefully it will be better.
Excellent. So why do you think that Black History Month is so important?
I feel like it's important to know backgrounds, and for those who lack that type of knowledge, I feel like that will help them instead of, running through assumptions or off of what others will say, and actually learning and getting to view that aspect from Black people, so they will have a better understanding.
Okay. So are there any positive influences that you've had either at DACC or just growing up, that have made you the person that you are?
Yes. I know a few teachers. One is Dr. Wade. He definitely sees you for who you are, and he don't look at, skin color, and those type of teachers I feel like would definitely help Black students and even push them, because it was a moment where I wanted to stop. It was a lot of pressure on me, and I wanted to just stop doing the work, and he was like, hey, keep going, we're not done yet. And that's definitely the type of teacher I think every student, period, should have. So.
Okay, so, and obviously I think, having those teachers that push you a little more are great, especially with the pandemic that has been happening over the past year. So what sort of struggles, or do you think that the pandemic has affected your family or made made you have to do things a little bit differently? So how has it affected your family?
Being at home and them being at work, say I have siblings, and with the pandemic going on, I could be distracted easily. And if I don't have Wi-Fi at home, and if I don't even have a laptop at home, it can definitely be like a tear. It's like, do I even want to keep going? But as long as you have those resources, and I believe DACC, they were sending out laptops and things like that, and they would help. So I feel like that definitely plays a part.
And then, do you feel that minorities have had more struggles during the pandemic?
Yes. Yeah, like I was saying, if they didn't have the resources with the Wi-Fi or even transportation to get to the library with the pandemic going on, them not being able to actually be in there, and having a laptop at home, whatever's going on at home, because I'm pretty sure a lot of Black students would rather be at school than facing whatever is going on at home. So I think it does play a part.
Okay. Do you feel that you've ever personally been negatively targeted because of your race?
Yes. Mm-hmm. It was a moment where I didn't even realize it until it happened. I'm like, did that really just happen? And those are the type of moments where I don't ever want to get into. But when that happens, you just have to embrace it and think first before reacting. And you have to think in the back of your mind, they don't know what I'm going through or what I've been through. And it's like, you know what? You just take a deep breath and think about how you respond and how you are representing your skin color, being Black, and to show it's okay.
Okay. And then, you've mentioned some challenges with transportation, Wi-Fi, families. Are there other challenges that you think Black students in Vermilion County face? Especially with going to school?
With going to school, probably just being targeted. Maybe just off of, say, what we're wearing. your hair's not done, or, little things like that. If, you look like a target, sometimes you can be pointed out as a target. So it's one of those things like you don't have control over. It's one of those things that you just have to keep pushing and realize it's another day.
Okay. And have you had any either negative or positive stereotypes because of your race? Whether it has to do with basketball or school or anything like that.
Yes. Can you be a little bit more specific?
I don't know. I just had a thought with like stereotypes, because you said people come into situations with their hair or their clothes.
Yeah.
Do you think if someone sees you, whether it's your hair or your clothes, or do they make assumptions about you?
Yes.
Or what kind of assumptions?
I feel like people think that looks aren't everything, but I think that it does have a play. So say if my hair wasn't done, we're doing group work, or I just look like I probably don't know as much, like I'm not smart. Probably there's people that don't want to be in a group with me because they probably think that I'm not smart enough, or whatever the case is. So I've seen that happen before, and I've been in something like that, even with basketball. Say if they think that I'm probably not good enough as the other girls, and they pick them, but then when they see me play, they see that, oh, she, she's good.
We know you're smart. You're about to graduate. And okay, so do you have any? Who would be a role model for you?
It's kind of cheesy, but God is my role model because, I would think about the things he would face and how I would face it. I try to live, by him, and I found myself in him. I don't push religion on anybody, but that was just me. As long as you have a belief, as long as you have something to, pour yourself into, that's who I go to.
And so, last question: do you have a motto or something that you live by?
Yes, I have it on me every day. Think positive. So I feel like as long as you have some type of positivity in your life, or like I said, think positive in any situation, I think that you'll be all right.